Hello, here's a short video on rotary cam switches. I thought I'd make this because there's very little about them on YouTube that's in English. Obviously the disclaimer here is that this isn't an instructional video, and I don't accept responsibility for anything mishap that might happen should you try to install one of these. This is just a record of how I went about buying and finding out how they worked. You're advised to seek professional help if you want to install one in your van and you're not up to speed on electrics. So when I got the first one, it was a 20 amp one, and I used a model railway controller to provide 12 volts for me, or you could just use a battery. And then using the multimeter, I tested the outputs for both switch position 1 and switch position 2. The idea being is that what you're doing is selecting where the 240 volts is coming from. So position 1 might be external hookup, and position 2 might be the inverter. And position 0 makes sure that nothing will flow between 1 and 2. So it isolates the 240 volt systems, which is very important, and which is why this can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. You need to make a record of everything so that there's no confusion in the future. When you come to actually put it in the van, you can wire it up correctly, and as I say, this is best done in a table format, recording what input terminals there are and what output terminals there are. It's important to keep the positive in nearest the switch. You don't want to be flipping them around, otherwise bad things could happen. And as I say, you need to work your way through it and find out exactly what each of these terminals is used for. There, unfortunately, not very much on the web about these that's in English, so I thought I'd give this video to just help people understand, how to go about finding out what this switch can do. Now, as I said, this unfortunately didn't work for me because it's only got one output, and I wanted two outputs for each input. So one input, two outputs, and so I ended up not using this switch. But I did go to go through the process of recording what the setup was, just in case I need to use it in future, with a little table, as you can see. And from that, I then decided that I needed a bigger one, and went from 20 amps to a 32 amp switch, which also had more connectors. Which I didn't need all of them. I only needed say 2 outputs. But this one actually did come with instructions, and it was a little bit clearer from the labelling which were the input connectors and which were the output connectors. I still went through the process and produced a kind of table, and you can see the instructions from the manufacturer at the bottom, which I couldn't make head or tail of really, so I wouldn't try and rely on anything like that if you're going to try this yourself. You'd go through the process of testing it with a multimeter, so you're 100% sure where you're going to get output from and where the input's going to go. So I hope you find this useful, and if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask.